Hi, everybody. This could be a very brief show. Last couple of days have been very difficult. I'm coming off of a wicked, hard root canal and a number of other issues that have followed in its wake. And so I am just being cautious by not doing a particularly aggressive show. But I do have a few things on my mind that I want to talk about that are happening. And I feel that to have a voice is an important thing when you see something happening and you have really something to say about it. We start off today's program, and this is going to be about 15 minutes long. So it's going to be a nice edible sized package for people who like little podcasts. Here's your headline. Josh Cribbs retires as a Cleveland Brown. I can look in the mirror and say I'm done. I believe Josh Cribbs has it right, but doesn't realize how right he has it. The article goes on to say that Josh Cribbs has come to terms with the fact that he can no longer play the game, even though in his mind, his decrepit football at the end was as good as a lot of people's 100%. I can't question that based upon the horrific punt returning and kickoff returning of last year's Cleveland Browns team. However, he says he's good with it all. He's happy with his career. He can look in the mirror and say, I'm done. And I don't know how many of you are going to guess where I'm going to go with this. Two more in the news. Two more. Gale Sayers, Dwight Clark. One had a connection directly to the Cleveland Browns as he was the 1999 general manager of the Browns when they came back into the league, famous for the catch. And he announced on Twitter that he has amyotrophic lateral. What does ALS stand for? Amyotrophic lateral sclerosis. There we go. Which is Lou Gehrig's disease. He's 60 years old. He believes that football definitely had something to do with it. He now is unable to run. He's virtually unable to walk. And he has whatever they say it's moving a little bit more slowly than in some cases. It's a fatal disease in all instances. Stephen Hawking, that's right, General Dog, he has it. His is a slower moving one, but look what it's done to him. It does the same thing to everyone. It strips them of their ability to have motor skills. And it ends up killing them because they're unable to swallow. Just telling you the bottom line on ALS. Gale Sayers' family has announced that he's suffering from dementia, that he doesn't really know who he is. Sayers is 74. Gale Sayers was the most exciting cutback runner in the game back in the 60s for the Chicago Bears. The most exciting punt and kickoff return man until he had several knee injuries predicated, many said, because of his ultra cutting and shifty way of running. And once the first knee injury hit him, they didn't have the methodologies that they have today in dealing with knee problems. Very similar to like Austin Carr, who probably would have had a greater impact in his NBA career had arthroscopic procedures been available and the level of service back then and what it is today. Gale Sayers, a victim of dementia as well. And Joshua Cribbs is looking in the mirror and saying, I'm done. And he's probably quite right. And once again, I'm going to point out that Gale Sayers made it to 74. Dwight Clark made it to 60. The average is 57. but the names of the players and the popularity and fame of those players, we're seeing it more and more. The Tony Dorsetts, the people who, from our generation of watching football, succumbing to the brain trauma of the sport. It ties in with another conversation that's being had all over the internet. And that is this notion of resting players, not arresting, but resting players in the NBA. And there's a lot of discussion right now, and it usually follows when LeBron James doesn't play in Los Angeles. But there's a lot of people questioning, including Bill Livingston of Cleveland.com, that the players were pampered. And I couldn't disagree more. The thing that I don't understand about all of these things is I don't want to have to read about Dwight Clark's ALS and how much it's inhibiting him, or how dementia has robbed Gale Sayers of his ability to reason and be cognitive. I don't want to hear all the marketing bullshit about what the NFL is doing in the future to help reduce encephalopathy, brain injuries, and trauma in the league. I really don't give a shit about that. And it's amazing to me how the people who are the most culpable continue to get off the hook with the fans' blessings. And I'm going to tie this into the NBA discussion. And I hope Bill Livingston watches this, because you're being bamboozled. Brian's song, right, General Dog? Sure. That was the movie about Brian Piccolo and Gale Sayers' friendship with the Chicago Bears. Billy D. Williams and James Caan, remember? It's sobering, to say the least, when major journalists in a city take the side of the fans who are screaming. And the fans would not be screaming fans if they weren't on the bandwagon in the first place, because the Cavaliers won the championship. And the reason they won the championship is they were healthy. And the year before, the reason they didn't win the championship is that they weren't healthy. If you could have somehow found a way to rest those players more in the previous year to prevent, of course, you couldn't prevent Kelly Olynyk intentionally ripping Kevin Love's shoulder joint out, but the Kyrie Irving thing, knowing that he had a penchant toward lower extremity injuries when he was in college, as far back as that, and knowing that he has had several stiff knees during the course of this year, it makes all the sense in the world to rest players, because without those players, we really gave a great account of ourselves, but ended up succumbing 4-2 to the undeserving champion Warriors, who were proving themselves to be undeserving week after week, the way they play basketball this year, having greater advantage this year until recently. And then when losing that greater advantage, plummeting to earth and playing just marginal mediocre basketball, much like Cleveland has been. Nobody except the league really chastised Greg Popovich back in 2012 when he sat everybody. The league fined him $250,000. But, you know, the truth of the matter is that it seemingly whatever Popovich did was considered great strategy. Popovich is the Bill Belichick of the NBA. And not that I have anything bad to say about Pop, because Pop is really a good coach. Belichick is a fucking flaming asshole. But the fact is, Teflon is Teflon. When you win, you're Teflon. That's the way sports are built. Popovich never took flack for it, because the San Antonio Spurs were in the midst of winning multiple championships, and nobody was going to question whether it was wise to rest anyone from David Robinson to Tim Duncan to Manu Ginobili to Tony Parker to all of them nobody would question him on that. If Tyronn Lue does it, it's a different story. If it involves LeBron James, it's something that affects the league marketing, which is what this is all about. There is nothing that says that a fan who buys a ticket in Los Angeles is guaranteed to see a certain player play. I don't hear the fans bitching, pissing, and moaning when Kevin Durant's knee crumbles in the middle of the game shouting, "But we came here to see KD play." I don't hear anybody saying that. And that's my point in all of this. The fans are protecting the league, and the league is culpable, just like in the NFL. The Dwight Howard story, the Gale Sayers story, the Tony Dorsett story, the Leroy Horde story, all of them. The league is culpable. The league has done nothing. The league protects its own financial interests because they're no different than fucking Home Depot or Lowe's or McDonald's. They are corporation. They only see the bottom line dollars and cents of this thing. And when fans start bitterly complaining because, I came to Staples and I wanted to see LeBron, well, then buy a fucking ticket for the next night's game against the Lakers. God only knows there were plenty available, I'm sure, if you really wanted to see LeBron play that badly, and shut the fuck up. Because there's no way that the Cavaliers can jeopardize star players who are over the age of 30 or have histories of injury playing back-to-backs in a situation that is meaningless. Who is culpable? The league is culpable for setting up the schedule the way they have. You can't have it both ways. If you want 82 game schedules and you want marquee games on ABC Saturday Night Prime, which is what this is all about, folks. It's all about Jeff Van Gundy, that bald-headed fuck, and whether they can scream and yell about something exciting in prime time and deliver ratings. Much better ratings than network programming would deliver, because network programming is staffed by a bunch of fucking virtual morons who put something non-entertaining on the ABC network. So if you can shoot fish in a barrel, in essence, and find a marquee matchup, it doesn't matter to the league or ABC or to Geritol or anybody advertising on that broadcast. It makes no difference whatsoever to them that one of the teams is playing at a distinct disadvantage because they're playing on a back-to-back. Nobody complains about the fact of how many shitty games we're forced to watch as NBA fans because teams are exhausted. People say, well, God, they really played that getaway game lousy. Why do you think that is? Because you get these 7-game West Coast road swings where you're playing, somewhere in the vicinity of, 5 times in 7 nights. And by the time you're getting ready to step on the plane to go home, you have one last game, but you don't give a fuck. You just want to get home healthy. That's the way the league schedules things, folks. That's not the players. The players, yes, they're employees, and they will technically play. But when you see good teams getting blown out by 20 points in their final game on a West Coast or an East Coast road swing, you understand why that's the case. It isn't because the players don't give a shit. It's self-preservation. They're just trying to survive. And the league, if they're so adamant about this, must change the way scheduling is done. And I have an idea. I am a free market kind of guy. Not like Donald Trump is, by the way. That's a nationalistic, jingoistic idiot. I believe that the strength of a league is predicated on the strength of every component. The league can only be as strong as the weakest link in the chain. That is my belief. I know that there is not parity in a lot of sports. What made the NFL from a spectator sport interesting was that there was parity. The NBA has never been about parity. Now, has it? When you can look back between the Celtics and the Lakers and see the high percentage of time that those two teams ended up making it into the finals, it became almost a travesty. It was like a two-team league. How many times did we have to watch the Bulls beat the Jazz? You know, the rich get richer and the poor get poorer in the NBA. There'll always be bad teams in the NFL, but you know something? The NFL had a good structure, not in the way they took care of their players, but in the drafting system that allowed, and free agency, that allowed weak teams to get stronger. So you did have shuffling amongst people. And that's an important thing. When you have the shuffling of the people who are 500 teams moving up and the teams moving down, you have some new teams. When you have a Falcons team playing for a Super Bowl, or you have teams that are represented in the hierarchy of the NFL, that's what keeps fans happy. In the NBA, however, it's a lot different. A lot different. There seems to only really be an interest in whose big three is better than whose big three. So, do you like the Warriors? Do you like the Cavaliers? Boston's going to be the next enriched team by the time the draft happens. Get them back into the mix again, like they always were with Larry Bird. The NFL likes the strong boys. They like the elite. And that's the problem with the league and why the league's culpable. For this whole argument, the league is culpable. Because the answer, they're not going to cut games from 82 games because there's money on the line and they're greedy fucks. And 82 game schedule, 82 game schedule. That's what it's going to be. I think they could eliminate Summer League basically, and it wouldn't bother me one iota, but nobody watches that anyway. Where the real money is the regular season, 82 games, and they expanded the playoff format so that there were no more 5-game series. They expanded that out to 7-game series because of the money. So I have an answer. If you have to show games on Saturday night, why don't we take a look at some of the teams that are up-and-coming teams, like the Milwaukee Bucks? Okay, I know, they're slightly under 500, but they got some good players, especially when Jabari Parker is healthy. They got Giannis and Jabari Parker. They got some good players over there. And I'm not going to tell you that the Timberwolves are a great basketball team, but maybe somebody in the country, besides the people in that state, want to see Andrew Wiggins and Karl Anthony Towns play basketball. Maybe that's a good thing. Maybe it would be a good idea to show the up-and-coming Boston Celtics so the fans could become familiar with what a bunch of fucking assholes they are. But in my mind, there are teams that are on the edge of becoming really good teams and teams that win, teams that they're going to see in the playoffs. Why not showcase those basketball teams throughout their primetime schedule so that this is not just a fan rendering of fans' favorite night where some variety that consists of the Warriors, the Thunder, let's see if I can use the Cavaliers, the Raptors, would be the two teams from the East. In the West, the Spurs, those 5 teams. The Clippers, make that 6 teams. Nobody's talking about the Utah Jazz, even though they got a really good record. Nobody talks about them. The fact of the matter is that the league stinks at its own marketing because they don't give any credence to teams that are not elite. All you have to do to solve this problem, NBA, is sit back, Schedule your primetime games. If you can schedule Cleveland and the Clippers without one team having this voracious advantage over the other, then fine. If they're not on back-to-backs, fine. Schedule that game. If you can't guarantee that, then televise another game where the teams are going to be more competitive. Nobody likes to see a 25-point blowout. But I'm watching it happen with regulars in the game, not just with backups on the floor. I'm watching it happen with regulars on the floor. Those last games of road trips invariably end up in blowouts, and the fans paid their good money to see a team unable to play or unwilling or uninterested. Yet all we focus on is the resting of the players. I don't want to hear about this anymore. Fuck it. Change the way you schedule, start promoting your whole league, or shut the fuck up. And finally, I wanted to end the program with LeVar Ball. We all know a huckster when we see one. We all know when somebody just comes out shooting their mouth off, when it's out of self-interest, Reverend Al Sharpton, excuse me, when we start seeing people that we have never heard from before as it gets close to draft time or close to majors time, Richard Williams, excuse me. I don't want to hear from Richard Williams. I want to watch Serena and Venus play. They're great. But I don't want to hear from that dumb fuck. And I understand UCLA kid plays really well. Ball plays a good game. No problems. But I don't give a shit about his half-ass father. I don't. And I don't understand why media keeps putting this crackpot on the air to make ludicrous claims. It just plays into his hands like it played into Donald Trump's hands. The media can't fight off its own desire to acquire ratings, even though the broadcast is beneath dignity. As for LeBron James and LeVar Ball, here's what I have to say about children of superstars. I lived next to one in college at the University of Massachusetts. Sam Jones was one of the great players in Boston Celtic history, famed for his bank shot and his appearance on multiple world championship teams. His son, Aubrey, lived right next door to me in the same suite that I lived in. I had a great opportunity to talk to Sam Jones. What a good man. And Aubrey, what a good guy. Aubrey was at the University of Massachusetts, not playing basketball. He's in the educational field today. And he could never live up to what Sam Jones did. And it didn't matter because I don't think anybody looked at Aubrey, though he had a great resemblance to his father. I don't think anybody really cared. It was just cool that his father was a Boston Celtic. Carrying the name LeBron James Jr. will have its disadvantages for the young man because he will be held to a standard. This is true. But LeBron is not the one pimping his son. LeBron dampens expectations by saying he has a chance. He'll have an opportunity, and he, in fact, will. At 12 years of age, young LeBron James Jr. already has verbal commitments from Kentucky and Duke and all that. Why? Why would a college do that? I think it's pretty simple why. That's the kind of name that you carry on your team roster, even if he doesn't play, because his father might become a donator to the program. Let's be honest, this is a business world we live in. But there's nothing wrong with LeBron James Jr. playing basketball and not meeting the standard of his father as far as his ability, because there's a whole world of business opportunities available for LeBron James Jr. And we don't have to worry about that when he's 12 years of age, nor do we have to worry about how great of a basketball player he's going to be when he's 12 years of age, or his brother who's 9. By bringing this nonsense up, LeVar Ball is simply showing what an ass that he is. He's the one who's pimping his son to desperately get his son drafted as high as possible so the money will roll in. LeBron James has such a brand already built that there is a place for both of his sons in a business capacity for years down the road, whether they play basketball or not. The James boys are playing basketball because it's fun. I hope the young Ball is playing basketball because he loves the game with all of his heart, but his father is in it for the stone cold, hard cash. And it is an unfortunate reality when we give a stage or a pulpit to an idiot who's saying all kinds of foolish things just because it generates us slightly higher ratings. Enough is enough is enough. So the next time you see LeVar Ball, just understand, and I think everybody realizes he's a schmuck, but have a little compassion for his son, because that's the pressure that boy is playing under. And the pressure is you better get drafted high to make dad some money because dad wasn't good enough to do it himself. I see it in tennis parents all the time. They used to call them stage mothers in Hollywood and Broadway, pushing their children to excess to reach heights greater than their own. As for LeBron, you've said what you had to say. Walk away from him. Don't give him any more credence because LeVar Ball is a schmuck. Thanks for tuning in to this edition of Moohead Radio. I'm going to rest my jaw, which has been open from dental work for so long. I got a headache that will not quit. Thank you so much for tuning in, and I hope to see you on Friday. Until then, hasta la vista, Pastor Heads. Good night.